what we are trying to advocate for really is systems change in the health system, in the Philippine health system. And it just so happens that our entry point was the caring for the children. And that's how we to address it in our own way. And we found that addressing the psychosocial support, integrating psychosocial support is one way to improve the Philippine health system. It's a constant response to an unmet need.
You're listening to Drawing on Hope, where we talk to inspiring people who paint for us their vision of a better world. I'm Albert, co founder of Pushpin, a social impact creative agency that uses drawings and stories to help make things make sense. Today, we're chatting with the co founders of Kythe Foundation, Icar Castro and Girlie Lorenzo. Icar is currently a trustee and consultant for the foundation and is also an HROD consultant and mental health practitioner. Girlie is the executive director of the foundation for 33 years until she retired and is now its board member and current president. In this episode, we talk about their work at the Kythe Foundation, providing socio-emotional support for kids with serious illnesses, and the need for systemic change in healthcare practices. As we join in on the conversation, Girlie explains to us the meaning of the word Kythe and why they chose it as the name for their foundation. Let's jump in.
Just to simplify things, baka people are asking, what's child life? Diba? What's child life? For those who are not so familiar with the term, it's basically providing a child-friendly environment to children in the hospital. Yon. So, and we do that by providing them with activities and explaining to them in age-appropriate language what their illness is about. So it's basically helping them cope with the hospital experience. So whether this be in private or in public hospitals, that's what we're trying to do because it gets to be quite traumatic or stressful for the children and the families when they are in a hospital, diba? Compared to the school, at home. So we try to provide a semblance of a normal childhood while they're in the hospital, especially for children who have chronic illness like cancer or renal disease, etc. Yeah. So basically, that's in simple terms what child life is.
Yeah. For those who are unfamiliar, what is Kythe Foundation all about?
Mm. So Kai, yun. So we derived the word from a Scottish term or word which means to manifest oneself through simple sharing and togetherness. So it rhymes with kite, di ba? Kite. And that's what we do. We uplift the spirits of the children and their families.
Yes. I think kasi a lot of it also kasi comes from our belief that sometimes people think of so many complicated things to help somebody, where at the core of our services, by your mere presence, you're able to manifest healing with that other person. That sometimes, diba, if you think about it, sometimes just being with somebody without even saying something is very healing. Or if you are to do activities to help people feel seen, heard, or safe, something as simple as just playing with them or asking them how are they doing, validating what their feelings are, it's really something that that's very healing.
So Kite is an organization which provides people an opportunity and a platform for you to help children who are in the hospital and for them to have a pleasant experience in the hospital. So you can do that by volunteering and playing with them either once a week or even twice a week. You can bring toys or you can bring bedside activities just so they are not lonely because they're not in school or they're not at home with their family. Or there's another, and that's what we call all under the child life services. There's another way that you can help, which is through our family support program. You can help the children by sharing your financial resources because they need medical and financial support. Because most of the hospitals, partner hospitals of Kythe are from the Department of Health, public hospitals. So they don't have as much resources as those children in the private. So that's why we need to raise funds so that we can provide medical and financial support for these children. So there. So basically, those are the two opportunities for anyone who wants to get involved with Kythe. That's how you can get engaged or have a meaningful engagement with our children.
Yeah, because if you take a look at it, if you think about it, children in non-medical contexts, what are they doing? They're learning, they're playing, they're growing, they're drawing, they're coloring, playing with their siblings and classmates. When they end up having diagnoses such as cancer or
Mm-hmm.
kidney disorders or blood disorders, that becomes very abnormal already. All the
Yeah.
hospital visits, they're pulled out of school. They can't play in some ways at home because need to be careful. So the services that we provide allow children to be children.
Yeah.
Allow children to have as normal a life as can possibly be had, even if they are going through hospitalization or repetitive visits to the hospital, or even if they are experiencing painful procedures. How do you help minimize the trauma and maximize holistic wellness and fast recovery, hopefully?
And
So I want to ask the two of you, how do you get from I'm aware of what these kids are going through the moment they find out they're sick and their world is turned upside down to I want to do something about it. How do you get from there to doing something about it?
We get asked that all the time. Girlie and I never ever had a conversation where we said, magtayo kaya tayo ng foundation. It never happened that way. We ended up just being two graduate students. I was doing my thesis and I was doing research on families with terminally ill
Mm-mm.
children as part of the completion of my thesis. So I started doing my research in East Avenue um, Medical Center, and I learned very quickly that the Dr. Marvi Abisamis, who was the head of the tumor clinic at that time, was very open for other students to come and do research and volunteer. So when I told Dr. Karandang about that, then she started promoting and advocating for other graduate students to go. And Girlie was taking play therapy, right? Yeah, at that time. So Girlie also started volunteering, doing her studies. And then we all had our patients that we were very, very connected with and wanted to help.
yeah, so like Icar said, I became close to one patient. His name was Paul. He had a very big tumor on his right eye. It's called retinoblastoma. And the objective, the goal of the doctors was to shrink this tumor so that they could operate on it. So that's why during my birthday, I raised funds and I called all my parents, friends, and all in the parish. And then I said, in lieu of a gift, please donate money for Paul's operation. And we were able to somehow um, provide the chemotherapy to shrink the tumor. But unfortunately, he had to go back to the province because his family needed the mom who was with us. And then when they came back, the mom and Paul came back. Unfortunately, he died. But that was very heartbreaking for me. But then Icar and I, we were talking at the bench at the psych department then at Ateneo grad school department, and I mean psych department in Ateneo, and they will say, we need to continue this, right? We need to continue our work with the children because we clearly saw that it takes more than medicine to get well, that the children really needed psychosocial support or needed play so that they can cope with the illness. And that's why, Icar, we were just talking, and then about that night, I think, or the following night, Icar called me and she said, Girlie, don't be surprised. I put your number on the sign up sheet, and people, strangers might be calling you. And, huh? Okay, okay.
You know, I remember sitting during her birthday party, and we were so amazed at how people were very willing to generously support. But we were also thinking that it takes so little for people to be present for all of these children. So between that conversation during the party and then the bench conversation, the next thing you know, without girlies knowing, I post a sign and I start recruiting people. I said, we're going to train you. Are you free every Wednesday? We're going to train you in play therapy. Next thing you know, I have people coming to me from the Ateneo Student Affairs Office. They said, hey, Icar, what's the name of your group? Do you want to become accredited as a campus organization? And while we were talking, that's when I said, Girlie, we need a name. If we're going to be an org, we need a name. And that's where Girlie found an article written by Father Joseph Galdon, precisely where he talks about Kything, which is the giving of the self, your presence, you know, healing love. So that was the name. But that was the time also when we were saying, hey, you know, we got featured on television. We got, you know, people were starting to get interested in us. And then they were saying, we're starting to get more people, companies, because since I moved corporate, I was already involved with and connected in the corporate world, and more people were willing to give funds. So we
Yeah.
said, if we had receipts, if we had receipts that we could issue, then maybe we can get more money to help the kids. And the way to do that is to become registered as a nonprofit. So okay, let's get registered as a nonprofit so we can get more money for the kids. So we put it up, we got registered. Girlie was very much on top of getting that done. Our very first trustees were our very first volunteers. So it really wasn't um, a plan. It was just one thing led to another, led to another.
Not a calculated, yeah, not a calculated effort at all, right?
Not at all, not at all. And so sometimes we scratch our head because I remember Girlie and I one time we were saying, how long are we going to keep the student org going? And I remember we said, well, if it stays alive for 5 years, I think it's okay. It's good enough. But instead of being a student org for 5 years, we are now a 33-year-old foundation with a question on how to continue this towards national impact.
What does your studies, your experiences show about the importance of having these child life services, these
Mm.
psychosocial support, having them in place? What's the value of that?
This is how I explain it to people from a multi-stakeholder perspective. Let's just bring it back to something as simple as all children at some point in their lives encounter needles,
Right.
right? Vaccination, blood
Which I'm scared
extraction.
of. Not my
People are
favorite
very
thing.
scared of it,
Yeah.
right? So I wish people understood that when we look at the child as a total person with multiple points of view, not just medical, there's emotional, there's all of that. When you introduce to the child and you prepare them for using play and drawing and
Mhm.
these different ways of communicating with children, that when you explain to them that this is what will happen, this is what you will expect, and then you teach them things like how to breathe, or you learn how to interact with the child, so that very brief but uncomfortable experience becomes really really short.
Mhm.
Then you have less crying, less resistance, less drama, less struggling. So when that happens, the trauma of the child is a lot less. So the next time that you need to do that, we see it happen to our kids. They'll show up and then they'll just stick out their arm. They will look at it. They know they need to breathe, and then quick, done. And they don't carry the trauma with them throughout their adulthood. They don't have
Yeah.
that stress from the hospital system itself. Why would I want that? Is playing just going to be a nice to have? If you think about it, when a child experiences the total care, then the
Mhm.
time spent for that procedure is so much shorter. So, from the
Okay.
hospital's perspective, I can cater to a lot more patients because
Right.
the service time is shorter. So, from the clinic's perspective, I see more patients, I earn more money. Everybody
Right.
wins. Everybody wins. But I just wish people would understand that mental health isn't something that is only if there's time, only if there's resources, only
Yeah.
if,
Comfort is an option, Icar.
yeah, yeah, why is that? Why is that? And yet we talk about as adults that, oh, I'm so afraid of a doctor, oh,
Right.
so I'm afraid of a clinic, oh, I'm so afraid. If we're able to manage all these overthinking and all of these emotions, then we will see higher compliance to care and to treatments, no matter how uncomfortable they are. We're able to see faster in and out of procedures. We're able to see people coping and becoming more resilient. And if they can cope with something uncomfortable as that, who knows what other uncomfortable things that they will learn how to cope with, right? It builds that. If you even look at the science of it, when our body is flooded with stress hormones, the physical healing doesn't come as fast
Right.
because you're all tense, you're all, you're all of that. It's a win-win, but people just think that play is an option. Play is just something, hey, you're sick, so you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I know, Albert, you have a couple of kids.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're like with needles, but yeah,
Yeah. But play and distraction is also the strategy
exactly.
that we opt for. And but more importantly, I think what I'm hearing from you as well, Icar, that I appreciate is that it's it's play and all these social emotional interventions, not just as a way to help them cope while they're in the hospital, but that it's something they can carry with them even outside of it after they've recovered all the way to adulthood. I like what you said, where if we help them cope with this while they're sick, who knows what other uncomfortable things they can overcome because they're more resilient, because they're more emotionally and mentally prepared.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah, I wanted to say that a positive experience, a positive medical treatment experience when you are young contributes to increased health seeking behaviors when you're an adult.
Yeah. Okay.
What is contributing to the poor health seeking behavior of Filipinos? So maybe we're not saying
Yeah.
there's really a correlation, but we're saying maybe it was because when they went to the dentist was not very friendly. They just sit down, pull the tooth, and that's it. Or vaccination, sit down. There was no preparation. There was no prep. This coaching, breathe
Mm-mm.
in, breathe out. It was traumatic for them. So
So one of the things that you mentioned earlier, Girlie, was how Kythe, the definition of the word means to make manifest, right? Or to make things visible. I'm curious, what do you want to make visible when you started? What did you want to manifest? And what are you still trying to bring to light today?
Oh, yeah. Medyo ano yan, it's been on our mind quite a lot. So I'll try and oversimplify it because the kind of services that we provide in our partner hospitals, it's called child life services. And child life services is a mix of play therapy, counseling, educating the children and their parents about their conditions, supporting their families and volunteers. So later on, we can get into detail. But what has happened in the foundation's existence for the past 33 years is that because of the credibility built and the impact observed by a number of doctors, um, through the other advocates, we've managed to influence the law. It's called the NICA law, or the National Integrated Cancer Control Act. And that law now requires hospitals to all provide child life services in these hospitals. So it's a big deal. But the question now is, where do people go to learn how to do child life services? How do we enable these people to be able to replicate what we have been able to deliver to over, I don't forget now how many children, Girlie, have we been able to help?
20,000 plus
Yeah, around
all these years.
20,000.
Yeah.
So how will these 100 plus hospitals, government hospitals nationwide, replicate what we're doing? We are the pioneer and the experts in the Philippines. People will look to Kythe. So now that's the question we're trying to figure out. How do we then enable and empower not only the people who will be delivering the services, but the whole healthcare system to make sure it's sustainable and possible? So that's kind of been on our mind. What can we do? How can we do it? How can we fund it? Things like that. So parang it's a big call to action, I would say. So we're gonna try and figure it out pa.
What we are trying to advocate for really is systems change in the health system, in the Philippine health system. And it just so happens that it our entry point was the caring for the children. Because when you go to our public hospitals and then our volunteers see that, you will see sometimes there are 2 to 3 patients in a bed. And then when the operation is supposed to be scheduled the following day to remove the tumor, then it gets postponed and postponed, and then you see the tumor growing big and big. So these things need to change. And that's how we want to address it in our own way. And we found that addressing the psychosocial support, integrating psychosocial support is one way to improve the Philippine health system. So we did not, again, like what Icar was saying, we did not plan for this, but it's a constant response to an unmet need. So when you get immersed and you really get involved in the lives of the patients, when we go and be with the patients and the families, you get to know these things. And once you get to know these things, it's not enough that you just sit back and, okay, I know, I'm aware. There's action. These experiences somehow has to move you to action. And that's what we have been doing. Icar and I have been doing. To the point that because of our advocacy and all that, we find now that the Child Life Services as a psychosocial support program is now in the National Integrated Cancer Control Act. There is a provision there in the law that for hospitals that have children with cancer, then child life has to be given as a service. So, like I said, it's improving all the time, trying to improve the Philippine health system in whatever way we can. And ours for Kai, this is our brand, this is our trademark, is the psychosocial support through the child life services. Yeah, because when we come in, you will see that the because of our volunteers and our donors, the ward is transformed into a child friendly because they paint murals, and then we have activities. Once the children, they don't like to go to the hospital, you'll see them now, you'll hear them, we need to go to the hospital because ates will be there, kuya will be there. And so in another way, we have increased compliance to medical procedures because they want to be in the hospital. They want to experience being in the hospital. Then they agree to this chemotherapy. They agree to a X-ray. They agree,
Right.
which normally, di ba, they will not. So it's two pronged. It's to increase compliance to medical procedures and hopefully leads to survival. And second, it's to improve the Philippine healthcare system through the integrating psychosocial support. So hopefully this not just for children, but even for adults. It will, even for adults, there will be a service that will institutionalize psychosocial support, even for
Mm.
adult patients.
If you look at the success of Kythe Foundation through the years, what has really helped is a combination of having people in the hospital in the network, but you're able to tap into society where you have people who have the means, who
Mm.
have the heart to come and volunteer. So it isn't something that the hospital can also do alone. But if you do that together with an army of people
Yeah.
who are willing to help, then that's something that I believe can be
Mm.
replicated in other places. A hospital might attach itself to a church group or another student organization or to a group of people where the volunteers can come and play and interact with the lowest risk children, so the trained professionals that we will try and figure out how can we enable them can then focus on the moderate to higher risk children. So it's how do we create that system of care, being very mindful that funds to create something like this will really be dependent on the greater majority to pitch in and support these hospitals. Private hospitals might have a different strategy, but the government hospitals that cater to the poorest of the poor is going to be something that we need to be able to look at, because we're very conscious that our healthcare system is really in need of some changes. But when we think about how can we create this change, it in the same way we look at the child as a patient within a family, and we take a look at the whole family as a system. This change also needs to be a change that has a systems approach as well, that it can't be just one doctor at a time. It's a whole healthcare system that so our entry point is through cancer care,
Mm.
but we do not help only children with cancer. The goal is to create a system where all pediatric cases will have holistic, complete care, because the medical system takes care of the body. But we know people have thoughts and feelings and faith or lack of faith. So they look for hope.
Mm.
So how do we honor the total person and see them as a total person in a system of care that hopefully will take a look at you and take care of you as holistically as possible as well.
I'm,
So it's a big ask. It's a big ask, but we figured it one step at a time.
I was gonna say I'm starting to see how big this is, right? Because I think coming into the conversation, having this thinking that um, what you're all about is social emotional support, psychosocial care, right? Um, but in order to make that sustainable, what I'm hearing is that your mission now is not just to make manifest the importance of psychosocial care, but also to recognize that in order to scale and sustain that, it really takes an entire ecosystem of players, from governments that need to prioritize this and institutionalize policies to support it, to even private sectors who have the means to not just give their time but also their talent, their treasures, uh, to make time for those who are in need. Um, and then seeing how big that is,
Yeah.
I, I I I'm wondering, how did you get here? Where for an ad hoc effort, right? Where it
Yes.
seems to be the scope of the work that you're being called to do keeps rippling out. How do you sustain yourselves? How do you keep on, what keeps you all going?
What keeps us going is we have this um, tagline for the kids, always in all ways. So there's always something that can be done, and there's always an unmet need. And so we just keep responding. But on a personal level, it's spiritual grounding for me, because we can get blown away with all that's happening. But, and there's some things that are really beyond our control. So we do our best, and then somehow we always go with God will
Will
provide.
provide. For me, I think what sustains me personally is the constant reminder that we've been able to impact change because we see the big picture, we see the big need, but we don't bite off more than we can chew. We try to address it in the way we can. What is the need at the time, and what can we do at this time? And we just prioritize and do what we can. But also, I think the reason why the organization as a whole has been able to survive is because at the very core, it's not about us. It really is not. It's about the children and their families and helping them in small ways, but these small ways have a really big impact. So w- I think it's really that. Even the whole history of the organization wasn't about us and our dreams. It was, what's the need, what can we do, who
Yeah.
can help, how can we help, we can't do this alone, let's just put pieces together and see where it takes us. So
I appreciate what you're saying about anchoring yourself in something bigger. But at the same time, I like what you said, Icar, where you're not biting off more than you can chew, because I think that's the other tendency, right? We want to go big. Um,
yeah,
and we might not have the resources to sustain that kind of effort. We don't have the enough energy, enough time, enough finances, enough volunteers. But doing what you can is a good reminder, because on the flip side, what it also tells me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that whether I have 3 hours a week to spare or a weekend to share, there is something that we can do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Is there, over the 33 years of Kythe, is there a particular story of a child or a family that has stayed with you and helps remind you why you do what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. I we had one child. His name was Bet. And during the medical procedure, the chemotherapy, um, in the treatment room, he would request us to sing "Loving You." Okay? Why? I tell you, we child life coordinators especially, we do everything, di ba, for the child. Just so they can comply with the medical procedure. Why? Because while the hand is being prepared for chemotherapy with the swab and alcohol and all that, so we're singing loving you. And then at the high note, when it's that's when the needle comes in. And so no crying, no hair pulling, no spitting, and after that, 5 minutes we're done. So these are and he goes out happy, goes back to the playroom, and so these are the experiences. These are the moments that we value and we cherish.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
imagine he was able to go through that, and it's just not one chemo, because as for chemotherapy sessions, you have like 5 needles going in. So that was it. In 5 minutes, done.
done.
Imagine that.
Yeah,
So those things really
yeah,
make our day.
yeah.
As far as an intervention, that's not a lot. It's
Exactly.
it's an inexpensive, not that at all time consuming
Yeah, yeah,
thing to do to sing a
exactly.
song.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but the thing is, you need to know the child. That's the thing. You need to know his wants, his needs, what is favorite, toy, storybook, and then relate to that. And that
yeah,
is what we as child life coordinators and specialists do. We
yeah,
get to know the child so we're able to help him go through this stressful experience in the hospital.
yeah. For me, my story goes all the way back to even before Girlie had her fundraising and before I even put up the piece of paper. It was during my research when one of my subjects, his name is Benedict, I looked to him as the angel that really, I guess, lighted the fire. He
Mhm.
was the spark. Because here I am, I'm wrapping up my research. It's my very last day of research. And he was a 13-year-old leukemia patient. And it was a very bad day for him. You know, he was just lying down, and then his toddler sister was rolling around the floor, and the parents were by the door, and they were arguing with the doctor about next, treatment care. So I'm just sitting there, keeping them company. Very often, I'm not even saying, we're just, I'm just stroking his shoulder or whatever. But lo and behold, the parents finally turned to ask the son, Ben, what do you want? And because while all that argument was going on home, he looked me in the eye and he said, Ate, pagod na ako, ayoko na. I don't
Mhm.
want anymore. All I could say is, if you're feeling tired, it's okay to feel tired because what you're going through is very tiring. That's all I
Mhm.
could do. So I'm struggling internally saying, should I not be doing anything? So they said, okay, you heard the child. We're going home. We're going to rest. Next thing you know, a couple of months down the line, I'm at the faculty room, and then they say, hey, Icar, somebody's looking for you. Mr. and Mrs. Campos are here. And I'm surprised. So they're there in their Sunday's best, and they tell me that it was Benedict's birthday. And in his last week, when he came home, all he talked about was how he had a visitor, that somebody would keep him company, and then he was relatively pain free and it was a peaceful passing. So here I am on the one side overthinking, thinking, should I not have done something special? Should I come up with more interventions, only for Benedict, through the parents, to teach me that because I was just there, present with him and for the family, that he felt seen and heard and accompanied. So that was what was really in my mind, that it takes so little to make
Yeah.
somebody feel accompanied. That's just kind of, I think, why it's kind of connected to what I said earlier, that when we look at what is important and we just zero in on what matters. That's why our name is when Girlie found that article by Father Galdon, it
Mhm.
was perfect. It was just perfect because Girlie said, hey Icar, isn't this what we do? This is exactly what we do. Tithing is giving of money and material, while kything is giving of myself and my presence. And because of that, somebody else is hopeful, is healed, is cared for, is validated. My humanness, broken as I am, is validated, that I am still worth something. It's things like that. So, and if you talk to every single volunteer that we have, everybody has a story of one child, one family that impacted them in that way. And there are so many other children. Girlie has seen more of the kids than I have. But a lot of them are like that. They will fight. They don't want to leave the room. They want to blow bubbles. They want to, and the doctors are friends. They're not enemies. They will give their hand and then say, "Okay, let's just get this over and done with, so I can go back and play." It's amazing when you see it, where we're called, and one bite at a time. One bite at a
Yeah.
time. It's just knowing what do we need to do. So like now, the first bite size that we're working on is finalizing what will be the child life competency framework of
Mhm.
what would be the competencies of somebody at a basic level to more advanced to expert level, and then below the basic for non-practitioners in the hospital, what would be the competencies that volunteers should have. So it's working on that. And once we have that, then maybe we can take another bite and figure out, okay, once we have the framework, what's the right framework and structure so we can train and teach and develop people how to deliver the services effectively. And then we can go into, okay, then how can we find more people so we can train people who can train other people, one step at a time.
Paint for me a picture of what the future looks like, Icar, and that hopefully we can see in our lifetimes. But what's this future that you're dreaming of, not just for Kaida, but for how we care for children in the country and even beyond the Philippines? But you're talking nationwide now. 30 years from now,
Mm,
you might be talking international. But what
yes.
does that future look like, and how does that impact how we care for children?
For me, because like child life services, this is a discipline that is already existing internationally.
Mm-hmm.
I dream of the time that one day we will replicate first world experience. I walk into a hospital, I have a child, and the moment the child is in that context, there is a child life services person who is already,
Mm-hmm.
part of the care team, and there is a child friendly environment, and that there are benefits provided by the government that I can avail. you know um, Mental health, will the child have access to that? Will the parents have access to that? Having a therapist, a counselor, or somebody as part of the care team, is that going to be possible? Because you go into the hospital and you're going to see there's a doctor, there's a nurse, and sometimes there's a social worker, etc. Then can there be somebody who knows how to deliver child life services? And whether you're in a private hospital or a public hospital, will this holistic care be available?
Mm-hmm.
Will there be channels so the hospital has a steady stream of donors and volunteers
Yeah.
who can also continue to provide ways of supporting these families? So I don't know how we're going to get there, but who knows? One hospital at a time. So, Girlie, what about you?
For me, because there are right now just four certified child life specialists in the
Filipino
Philippines.
child life
Yeah,
specialists, yeah.
so hopefully in the years to come, there will be 50, 100 Philippine certified child life specialists who are implementing the child life program or services in most DOH hospitals and in our private hospitals.
Because the challenge, not just in the Philippines, but also across Asia, is the only place where you can get the certification and the training is overseas. Other countries, UK, US, Australia, they have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in this field. It really is a discipline. But like Gertie said, there are only 4 Filipinos who are certified child life specialists. Girlie is the very first in all of the Philippines to get certified. And then the next ones who got certified also got certified while being affiliated with Kythe.
Mhm.
It's impossible for them to, to train everybody. But if you take a look at the other places that have child life practitioners in Hong Kong, in, Japan, or all of that, they also got their training overseas. So Asia is challenged to find. But who knows, maybe we'll end up becoming the thought leader somehow, and we will be the go-to place for people in Asia to learn at least enough to improve their way of delivering services in the hospital. So I don't know. That's the question that keeps us awake right now, trying to figure out how do we do that in a sustainable way.
So to help make that future happen, I know one of the things that Girlie mentioned earlier was parents and even patients, individuals can go to their hospitals and be an advocate for child life services. How else can people support the the work that Kythe is doing, or how can they get involved?
Sige, Madam President.
Okay. So there's everything, there's something for everybody, right, in Kite. And so if I may advertise, you may want to go visit our website, and then you click on the volunteer. I want to become a volunteer. And from there, we can give you a menu of things that you can do to engage with our children, or we can tap onto your skills like drawing, preparing a children's book, or preparing a celebrate life party. But everybody has to go through an orientation because have to engage with children. So there, so that's one way. And then of course the other way is if it's in the government, maybe you would like to also advocate those who are in field health and in Department of Health. We would really like to get your support so that we'll be really finally be able to integrate child
Mhm.
life and psychosocial support for children with cancer and other chronic illness. So there. So we need your support that way. Thank
Yes.
you.
And in addition, there are a lot of companies, whether
Mhm.
you're a small entrepreneurial company or a very large local conglomerate to a multinational, um, if you would be, if you would be willing to make a donation that will allow us to embark on these transformational initiatives that will help us get from point A to point B, because there are so many things that we can do, but we need experts to take a look at these things. We need experts to help build the learning framework. We need experts to help us re-engineer some of our processes. We need funding so we can go from manual to something that is more automated. And these are some things that corporate donations might help us really get from point A to point B, because as you understand, we have operations and then we have these transformation projects. We're a very tiny team. So, you know, we really could benefit from some grants to allow us to get the temporary expertise we need to be able to build the foundations for the scalability that we need. If there are people who are consultants who are willing to donate their professional time pro bono, then we could look into ways as well tap into that, because one of the things also that worked very well for us is when we have corporate partners who have that combination of giving us a donation that can help us with the work we need to do, and they also partner with us so their employees are
Mhm.
able to, you know, roll out their corporate social responsibility contribution to society as well. So, there are many ways where we can make that combination. But ultimately, yes, if we want to go through transformational change, we need partners to help us.
You need more village people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, as we get to the end of our conversation, I wanted to ask both of you, for those who might also be burdened in their hearts with their own advocacies, what message do you have for them as they face their own big problems or systemic challenges, and might feel helpless or overwhelmed? Um, what what message would you like to share with them?
It was helpful that we have a sanctuary of NGO leaders who come together and share our experiences. Like, I'm also part of Ashoka Fellows. So these are all founders of different NGOs and CSOs. So we do have like a gathering once a year, and we talk about anything and everything, and we help each other out. So it's this sanctuary, find your sanctuary among NGO leaders, and so that it's a safe place and you can support each other there.
Yeah. For me, I think it's not to get so overwhelmed or even obsessed with the journey that you want to chart. It's more of being open to and being willing to accept where your journey will take you. So you don't get so caught up with wanting to plan and orchestrate and all of that. It's where will it take you? I mean, look at us where it started, right? Because we in Kythe we allow the journey to take us where we are meant to go, rather than this is where we want to go and let's just force our way to carve out the path. It's more like, where is the path going? Let's follow it. Because that, I think that would make it less overwhelming
Mhm.
and less of a burden, because you're not judging yourself versus a plan that you charted, rather than you look at the impact of where you felt called and you responded. In the end, it's about the people you serve and it's not about you.
Thank you so
So,
much,
yeah.
Girlie and Icar. Thank you so much for taking us on this journey, for letting us take a peek into your journey so far. We appreciate your time. We've learned so much. We hope to chat with you again soon.
Yes, looking forward to it. And thank you very much for having us.
That's it for this episode of Drawing on Hope. A big thank you to our guests for sharing their story and vision for a better tomorrow. If you found this conversation meaningful, share it with someone who could use a little hope and inspiration. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. Drawing on Hope is a podcast by Pushpin, a social impact design agency that uses drawings and stories to help make things make sense. Follow us at Pushpin Visuals on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, or visit www.pushpinvisuals.com. The show is hosted by me, Albert Orr, with production support from LJ Bautista, art direction by DG Daguna, and editing by Miko Migrino of Studio in Momentum. Thanks for listening, and remember, hope isn't something we wait for, it's something we create.